So good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Unity of Chautauqua. I'm Reverend Barbara Williams, and we are in this delightful space together. And some people are going to be joining us on video later. They will watch us on YouTube. And so I would encourage you to just point to that and tell your friends to come join us, because we know there's no time and there's no space in spirit. And so we'd like to begin this morning by singing ourselves into this place and time. So would you stand up and sing? So let's anchor those words we just sang. And know that we have arrived here by a divine appointment to connect, to be open, and to set an intent for this day. And just feel that knowing that as you have said yes to this moment, you've said yes to the God is of us, into allowing ourselves to be nurtured and loved, supported, and gifted with the gift that each of us brings into this moment. It may be a smile, a word, a song. And so we say, thank you, God, for this God is, this I am moment. And so it is. Amen and amen. So, there's a foundation of unity. In fact, there are 5 foundations of unity, and we would be here for an hour and a half if I went over all of them. But for me, the one central one that has changed my life over and over again, and it's a lifelong journey, is this one. There is only one presence and one power in the universe and in my life, God the good, omnipotence. And so life just gives us these great opportunities to anchor that at a deeper level, because all of us are going to have some very frustrating, right, moments in life, and painful ones at times. And so as we walk this spiritual journey together, we can encourage each other. Instead of jumping into reaction, we become intentional. And so every time that I get in this, and sometimes I've gone into reaction in some cases once for a year and a half over something that really upset me. And when I got into the place when I became an intent of love, it all shifted. I didn't have to do anything anymore. All I had to be was that love. And so that's the encouragement. I'm going to ask you to say that with me, and then look in your life and see where you can apply that. And just think, there's a presence and power, and it'll shift this moment by shifting to that love. So together,
there is only one presence and one power in the universe and in my life, God the good, omnipotent,
all power. And just a couple of announcements about Unity. If this is your first time there, we call ourselves a positive path for spiritual living. And first time I ever walked into a Unity church, the minister said, here's some ideas I'm going to share, but go inside and figure it out for yourself. And that just shifted everything. I'd never had anybody say that I had this wisdom inside. And so that's who we are, is to bring the opening of minds, the touching of hearts, and the transforming of lives by touching who we are. So we say Unity is positive, practical, progressive approach to Christianity based on the teachings of Jesus and the power of prayer. And I love it that we look at that divine pattern running through all religious ideas and faiths. So you can find us and find what's going on in the summer, and also off season. We do the first Sunday of every month. We do it on Zoom, but we also record it. And we've been doing different series on there and at unitychq.org, which is a combination of Chautauqua, chq.org, and Unity Worldwide, which is unity.org. So that's how you can find us. You're here, you know what the Sunday service is. However, we do have a meditation, and it's going to be a little different this week if you're inside the gates. Usually it's here Monday through Friday, but Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday this coming week, it is going to be right over here in the Lutheran house, because they're having an activity for the first 3 days. So if you're looking for the meditation, it'll be there. And we have on Wednesday night a positive path for spiritual living, and that is held in Turner Center. And that is the North Bus, drops you right off at Turner in the classroom, but you have to have your gate pass if you're on. And I would like to introduce our chaplain of the week, and this is the Reverend Russell Heiland. Russell, would you come up?
Sure.
And I love this guy. I love this guy. And I'll tell you why. And then I'm going to ask him to say a little about Wednesday night before he shares with us the Sunday. I was running a pretty good-sized church with a lot of people that wanted to take Unity courses, and I was running it by myself. And I needed a teacher because there's so many classes. And Russell came up from St. Petersburg. I was about an hour north of that, and taught classes every Saturday. We did these super Saturdays, and he would teach. Did you teach 4 classes?
Just 2.
Oh, take 2, and we had somebody on the yeah. And people kept just saying, we love him. And I just got rave reviews from, now he was in St. Petersburg at that time, at my home church where I came from 25 years. And now you are outside Washington, D.C.,
right,
in Fairfax, Unity of Fairfax. So, and I know you're doing great work there, because boy, did you make a difference at my church.
I thought you were going to say because of the gray hair.
You are a little grayer back than we used to teach. So would you like to say a few words about Wednesday?
Wednesday. So a fun thing that happens in a lot of communities is Christmas in July. So I wanted to do an hour-long presentation about Christmas in July, and I thought to myself, well, how can we shake it up? And I want to look at one particular element of the Christmas story. I'm not going to tell you which one because I want you to come and be a part of the experience. And I want to look at it from the point of view of ethics. And we'll look at it from the point of view of ethics in the 21st century America for us, and consider what we may have been told about this particular element of the story. Because there are many aspects of the Christmas story that if you look a little deeper than surface level, you'll realize this is problematic. This is very interesting. How is it that this wonderful, enormous holiday that we became called Christmas, how did it become that based on its rather funky origins? So it will not be the sort of Christmas in July you might be expecting. And if I play my cards right, you'll walk out with more questions than you did when you walked in. And you will have divine wisdom, as Barbara shared, to deepen your involvement with the story and have a much more meaningful experience of Christmas this year.
So we are now going to go into our time of meditation. And Janine, this is our music director, Janine, and I didn't say anything about you this, I can't believe it that I just went on and on and on and didn't say anything. How is that background touches me so deeply? So I just want to honor what the gift you bring to us. And so we're going to sing ourselves into the meditation right now. So feel free to join us and deep breath.
Close your eyes if that's comfortable for you, or simply allow your gaze to rest on a spot a few feet in front of you. also invite you to take a few deep and gentle breaths. And on the inhale, allow your belly to expand out as far as it can as you draw in nurturing oxygen. And on the exhale, pull your belly button back to your spine to ensure that you are exhaling completely. Throughout the course of our day, our breathing often becomes shallow. And what a simple and restorative process to mindfully take a few deep and gentle breaths to bring us back to the present moment, to make us aware of our physicality and how incredible it is. And so as we engage in this practice this morning, I invite you to scan your body, starting with the top of your head, to see if there's any place you might be holding some tension. Perhaps the back of your jaw or your shoulders, which seem to have come up to your ears, lower them. And affirm peace, be still. You may notice there's tension in your lower back or your hips. We often keep energy stored there. Just again, affirm peace, be still. Your knees and your feet. And I invite you to have your feet flat on the floor, connecting with the earth, but it's really however is comfortable for you. So much of our spirituality is interconnected with our terrestrial life, connecting with this earth, while at the same time connecting with the air and the atmosphere. In some sense, we are mediators between heaven and earth, to be the heart and the hands of spirit, opened and receptive to the wisdom of divinity and the wisdom of Mother Earth. I invite you too to become aware of any sounds from in the room or outside, perhaps people walking by or a car or a gurgling stomach or a cough. You just acknowledge sound. You don't need to make any of it stop or go away. Sound is a part of life. So I invite you to allow any sounds that you might notice to be incorporated into this experience. I invite you to be mindful of the temperature in the room. It may feel comfortable or it may feel clammy or warm. It doesn't matter, because that too is temporary. And we just simply notice it. We don't need to change it right now, perhaps afterwards. But now we just let it be. If your eyes are closed, you'll be aware or notice some sort of luminescence. Again, we just notice it's light. In life, there's light and dark, just a part of life. And you may be aware in this time of meditation of thoughts going through your mind. I invite you to simply notice them as if they were rafters going down a river. And they might wave and try to get your attention, but just let them be and let them float on by. We just identify them as thoughts. We are human, therefore we think. But for now, we'll just let thinking happen on its own. And if there's some important thought, it'll come back. And in like fashion, you may experiencing feelings that seem to come from nowhere. Sometimes when we rest in sacred and holy silence, a feeling will seem to want to grab our attention, and with a slight smile on our faces, we simply notice feelings. human beings, we have feelings, we have thoughts, but we are not our feelings and we are not our thoughts. We are each an individualized expression of the creative magnificence of the universe. The purpose of our meditation is to allow us to just rest in that energy, rest in the knowing that there is one power and one presence in the universe. Ultimately, we are part of it, and it is a part of us. So I invite you to join together in creating a sacred silent container for the awareness of the allness of spirit in each one of us, in this room, and in the world. And so now as we begin to return to the consciousness of this room and this space and this time, I invite you to take another deep and gentle breath. And you may wish to wiggle your fingers and toes. And when you're ready, open your eyes and let us see the glory of you as we continue to be the hands and the heart of spirit in this world. Amen.
This moment
for our next song, we're gonna just get our energy kind of moving after that wonderful time of just sitting there in the peace. And we're gonna sing in as Russell shares with us in a few minutes.
The chords are posted there. Everything I need is right in front of me. Every place I stand is holy ground. Everyone I meet is something
intrigued me when you sent me that you were going to talk about babies in bathwater.
Babies in bathwater.
I've had some experience with that.
All right.
Yeah, I've been soaked in that situation. So would you welcome Russell back to talk about keeping the baby?
Keep the baby. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you all for being here. The most important gift you can ever give another human being is your time. And so I'm very honored and humbled that you would be willing to come together in this setting with your time. It is truly a gift. Let's talk about babies in bathwater. Have you ever heard the expression, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater? Do you know where it comes from? I love stories and I love language and I love the origin stories of particular quips and sayings. And so this one comes from German language in the year 1512. That is the oldest recorded version of Don't Throw the Baby Out with the Bathwater. A pamphlet written by a Franciscan priest, Thomas Murner, who was a satirist and had really nothing good to say about Martin Luther. But that's the oldest recorded version of this saying. So it's old and it goes back a long time. And it conveys an archetypal truth about life. Sometimes conditions happen, sometimes situations happen to us, and we have a temptation as human beings in our anger and our resentment and our fear to just want to walk away. This axiom reminds us there's probably more to the story, and maybe walking away is not the best thing to do, or the most appropriate, or the most helpful. I want to talk a moment today about church, and a fact that we've been reading a lot about, those of us who are clergy are altogether too familiar with it, that attendance and membership in faith communities in our country is at its lowest point. Why is that? And have we as human beings thrown the baby out with the bathwater? Because as you may have felt, and I truly felt, in our song, There's Something Sacred Here, there was something sacred here. I hope somebody else felt that wonderful sense of connection. Or perhaps in, not just here, but in maybe another faith community setting, or even a yoga studio or a book group, you felt something sacred. There was a connection and a sense of power and a sense of divinity going on in that circle that happens when people gather. When people gather with an intention to be open-minded and open-hearted and open-armed to see what's going to happen here that will be a blessing and a benefit. And historically, that's why people, one of the many reasons why people gather. And for us in Unity and New Thought, since we can't use guilt, because we don't believe in guilt, we can't use fear of hell, because we've all lived through hell. We know what that is. We're not too terribly worried about the gentleman at the door, if somebody's curious. We can't use coercion. We choose to gather because we know that each and every one of us brings something special, a gift. And that each and every one of us, when we gather, is hoping to receive something. So our intention is to create sacred experiences. But for a number of reasons, the fastest growing faith community in the country are the nuns. And I'm not talking Catholic nuns. I'm talking the spiritual but not religious. People who understand that something mighty and powerful happens when we gather in a healthy group, and yet have had difficulty with organized religion. That's where Unity really does well, because we're not so terribly well organized. So, yeah, right. I thought I'd go through a quick list, real quickly, of the top 18 reasons why people leave church. Number one, everyday annoyances. You come in and people are rude, there are cliques and that sort of thing. Signage is bad, ministers' jokes are bad. Not here, of course. Number two, the worship was outdated. It just didn't seem relevant to the time and the place. Number three, there's a theology of exclusion. Who's allowed to teach by gender, or who's welcome in the door or not welcome in the door. Or perhaps the theology just hasn't kept pace with life as it is today. We know that the divine is omnipresent everywhere, so why are we keeping a theology that is restrictive and constrictive? Perhaps we've outgrown the theology. Maybe we don't want to be told that we are bad sinners born and somebody has to die for us. Perhaps there is hypocrisy. The church says teach love and non-judgment and compassion, and yet doesn't support love and non-judgment and compassion. Perhaps there is failure to properly address institutional misdeeds, such as slavery or Indian schools or financial schools or sexual misconduct. Perhaps the faith community is projecting its shadow in the form of dogmatism, blaming victims, spiritual bypass, which means we're not even going to talk about what the issues are, or simply arrogance or chauvinism. Or perhaps any one of us as an individual had a personal life crisis and the church just was not there to provide the support that we were needing. Or perhaps there was a collective crisis, the war, the natural disaster, this sort of thing, and you're left wondering, why did God allow that to happen? Perhaps sports. Kids' sports are on Sundays now, and families are gone. Or perhaps individuals have just simply found new ways of practice and connecting with divinity that is more rewarding than the community that they knew. Perhaps there are a variety of negative associations with church, such as Christian nationalism, or a church resisting legal enfranchisement and rights of others, or perhaps a denial of science, or perhaps we haven't seen a positive portrayal of faith in movies and television in a very long time, and a negative stereotype is being perpetuated. Or perhaps you just don't have time anymore. We work 7 days a week now in our culture, and some of us just have to go to work. Maybe there's not a church you like in your area, or a denomination, or a setting. Or maybe churchianity has taken precedent over Christianity, the teachings of the church being more important than the teachings of Jesus and the elders in the community. Or perhaps once faith community has been, belief system, also known as BS, is completely second. That's a funny joke. The minister talked about BS. Or one of the main reasons, we don't often think about this a lot, with the ending of the Cold War, less need to go to church. Why? Because the red bear was godless communism, and we resist that by going to church. So a lot of reasons why people would leave a faith community. But let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, because people come together. We need to be together, to love one another, to serve one another, to make a positive and constructive difference as we share about unity, practical, progressive. What's the other one? 3P. Positive, practical, progressive ways of helping people to transform their lives and transform the world. You know, I don't know if you noticed this, but when there's a natural disaster somewhere around the world, somewhere in our country, do you ever notice who's there first? Often faith communities. Of all sorts, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, people going in motivated by the best of their traditions, to be the hands and to be the heart of spirit in the world, making a positive and constructive difference. That's what we are about in the Unity movement. Helping people to understand how powerful we all truly are to co-create a world that works for everyone. The Apostle Paul addressed this in his letter to the Romans with one of my favorite verses, and it's one you will hear a lot in a Unity church or center. Therefore, be transformed by the renewing of your minds, so that you can determine what is good and acceptable and perfect. And then go do that. And yet there seems to be some hesitation in doing that. As human beings, it's much easier for us when we've experienced a slight or a pain or bad experience to just walk away. And it's not just church. It's with jobs, it's with family members, it's with neighbors. I'm not going to deal. And sometimes that is the right and appropriate course of action. We never want to stay in an abusive situation. However, sometimes we need to pick up our game. I am reminded of the German Lutheran theologian Martin Niemöller, who was initially a pro-Nazi sympathizer, and later, when he saw what that actually meant, had a change of heart. He was transformed by the renewing of his mind, and he said, this is not good for anybody. He wrote a famous poem, and you've probably heard it before, in 1946, because after the war, his message to the German people was, we did this. We did this by our complicity. We did this by our silence. We must atone. And he said, first they came for the socialists, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't a Jew. And then they came for me. And there was no one left to speak for me. Unfortunately, he survived the war. But he didn't throw out his country. He didn't throw out his faith. He said, we need to do better. We need to pick up our game. So the call for us, I think, as Unity Truth students and as individuals committed to transforming lives and creating a world that works for everybody, is to go back and ask ourselves, have we thrown the baby out with the bathwater? And is there something we need to do? Every one of us in our lives has a list of the things that were done to us that were not fair, that maybe we did to ourselves that were not fair. And we carry up in our lives a lot of our life energy in anger and resentment. Or perhaps I'm the only one and I'm shamelessly projecting onto everybody in this room. I hope that is not the case, but if so, I mean, I'll take one for the team. So what's the way to move past that? What's the way to open our hearts to the concerns of others? Well, forgiveness. And I'm not talking about Hallmark card forgiveness, although there's nothing wrong with Hallmark cards, especially if your birthday's tomorrow, Joe. No, you Todd. But so many of us get attached to that, and it becomes an identity. Probably nobody in this room, but you might know people who just carry the badge of honor about their ex or about their family. I'm a survivor. I've made a decision. They're bad, or maybe their prior church or the homeowners association, which is legitimate. But what does it get us? We have so much life energy to create a life for ourselves, to have life and have it abundantly, as Jesus said, or to make life better for others. And if we are tied up in holding that resentment, that energy can't go anywhere. It's energy that is damned and can't move. So I want to give you some quick thoughts around forgiveness. Forgiveness is and isn't. Forgiveness is self-love because it liberates us from the situation. Forgiveness is not forgetting. You know, as they say, those who forget the past are condemned to relive it. I remember seeing burned out synagogues when I was a student in Europe, and the signs said, never forget this. Never forget this. And forgiveness may or may not include reconciliation. Sometimes it is just not appropriate to reconcile. But it is appropriate to claim your life energy from that experience and move on. I one time heard a story about grief, and it was described as the marble in the box. All of us have experienced grief for some reason or another. And sometimes it's like in a box, and it's a marble, or maybe it's a pea, or maybe it's a little speck of sand. And some days it's a giant beach ball that fills the entire box. Resentment and anger can be like that too. So we can ask ourselves, how big is your resentment today? How big is the grief today? And just acknowledge it. Because we will live with these experiences, these negatives in our lives as chronic conditions. Grief, sadness, regret, but they don't have to be the determining factor of the quality of our lives. Many of us have a chronic health condition of some sort. I'm wearing shoe inserts right now. But it doesn't ruin my life. It's just something I live with, and I choose to do so that I can go on and have a rich, full, abundant life and go hiking. But I know that this is a condition, but it doesn't stop me. You know, as we say sometimes about fairy tales, and they lived happily ever after. Well, that's BS, that other kind of BS. The reality is they lived happily even after. You see, because we're all going to have these experiences in our life, and we can chunk everything, chunk the baby, or we can just clear out the bathwater. And yes, that happened. The bathwater got dirty. So I cleaned it out, and I cleaned up the baby. That's how we live forgiveness. And forgiveness takes time. You can't rush it. It reminds me of one of my favorite lines in the Bible. My favorite line in the Bible is always the one I'm about to share, just so you know. My favorite line in the Bible, Jesus is on the cross, Good Friday, not so good for him, been really rotten off, the truth be told. And he says, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. You notice he did not say, I forgive you. That day was so bad. That experience was so awful. It wasn't going to happen. But what he did say is, I'm willing to allow forgiveness to happen, and I won't stop it. Even if after all that's happened. So one of the first steps in the forgiveness process is simply to be willing. I'm willing to have forgiveness. It's another way of saying, I'm willing to have my freedom. I'm willing to be free of whatever this is. You know, I've often heard it said that a way to approach forgiveness is the understanding they were just doing the best they could with what they knew at the time. This is true in some circumstances. Sometimes people, you and me included, will say or do or not say or do the thing that is harmful or hurtful. And that really is the best we can do. Sometimes folks are really deliberately doing something awful and mean-spirited. They know what they're doing. And why do they do this? Because for whatever reason, they either didn't know or lost sight of the truth of who they were. I'm reminded of a story of a member of my church in Wilmington, North Carolina, who was a social worker, and she went to a program about child abuse, horrible topic. And I said, Joan, what did you learn from that experience? And she said, I learned that there are people who do not know who they are. Because if they knew, they could not do what they've done. Sometimes folks just don't know the truth of who they are. And they can't let their light shine. We recognize that. So for our own spiritual liberation, to get out of our own dirty bathwater, we don't give a pass to what happened. Their ignorance, our ignorance. But our target and our goal is always the establishment of restoration or correction, not retribution and punishment, because that just starts a different cycle. The question before us is, what cycle do we want to perpetuate? I'm all for restoration. I'm all for correction if it's possible. But if that's not possible, I'm all for putting it down and moving on. Consider this encounter between Jesus and Peter in Matthew 18. Then Peter came to him and said, Lord, if my brother or sister sins against me, how often should I forgive? As many as 7 times? And Jesus said to him, not 7 times, but I tell you, 7 times 70 times. 7 is a number that in metaphysics we understand represents completion in the physical realm. And any time that's multiplied by 10, it's just a symbol to say, this is going to go on and on and on. So as long as you have skin and bones and a body, chances are you will have something to forgive, someone to forgive, even if it's only the face in the mirror, or it's the one on your social media feed that won't go away. Let yourself go. I want to close with a story from the Dalai Lama. Many of you are familiar with the Dalai Lama, leader of Tibetan Buddhism, forced out of China. They escaped the communist government, moved into exile in India. They are now stateless. They've lost so much. They're still under brutal attack by the current government. And in the book of Joy, so he writes a book about joy, go figure, along with Archbishop Desmond Tutu. He talks about living forgiveness as a constant attitude, a way of always getting fresh water in the bathtub. He said, where the wrong is concerned, it may be necessary to take appropriate counteraction to stop it. He's not saying be a doormat. Take action. Towards the actor or the person, however, you can choose not to develop anger or hatred. How's this? I mean, how does that even happen? He said, this is where the power of forgiveness lies. Not losing sight of the humanity of the person while responding to the wrong with clarity and firmness. Having a healthy boundary. You understand there's somebody there who may not know the truth of who they are. It's often the victim's job to know that for them, to hold that vision, whether or not they ever catch it for themselves. We stand firm against the wrong, not only to protect those who are being harmed, but also to protect the person who is harming others, because eventually they too will suffer. So it is out of a sense of concern for their own long-term well-being that we stop the wrongdoing. That is exactly what we are doing concerning the Chinese hardliners. We do not let anger and negative feelings develop towards them, but in the meantime, we strongly oppose their actions. That's empowered living. That's liberation in the face of so much that they've lost. Yet they have not lost their humanity. They have not lost their connection to divine love and their willingness to share it, and most importantly, to be it. So whether you have a history with faith community, family, the government, whatever, we are called to always remember the humanity that we are dealing with fellow human beings. We are called to forgive, to live that constant attitude so that we might be free ourselves, and in so doing, model freedom for others. That's why we come together as a community, to teach each other to love one another and create the experience of holiness that we can take out into the world. Peace be with you, and namaste.
Okay, it's a lot to think about, Russell. Thank you for reminding me and giving me a picture in my mind. You know, the thought that came to me is, wow, I can just, when I'm in those anxious moments, I can see their baby, like their essence, and I can maybe just throw out the dirty bathwater with the energy that's coming. So thank you. I appreciate that. And so this is our time of offering, and I would like us to say this together and to honor the energy that these words represent in your life. Because it's not just, although I've worked on my understanding of money as God energy. So that, and that means when I'm giving it anywhere, not just church, but anywhere. When I'm buying food, when I'm seeing an energy that's moving, and that whatever I'm sending out is coming back in other ways, which surprised me. Which, as one of the ministers this week said, to be delighted, surprised and delighted. She says that every day. Surprise me, God, and delight me. And so just let's hold your gift and realize that what we're giving has had many lives before us, right? It's come through other people to us. And now it's going through us out into the world to bring Russell here. And to bring his wonderful husband, Anthony, here. And to allow you to be here. And so we honor that fact that we can't outgive God. Oh, we have a little, that's okay, Kelly.
It's God's calling.
It's God calling. Yeah, it's God calling. So, jeez. I know the door's stuck today a little bit. So, Andy, would you get our offering basket? Thank you. Andy's in charge now. Thank you. So, let's just take these words and honor the fact that we are that essence. And so together, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, and I am grateful. So just feel that your gift came to you as a gratitude. And feel that gratitude now goes out and experiences some more love and gratitude. And so let's sing together as we pass our offering basket. Would you join Janine?
I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful, I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful, I am so blessed.
And so we remember Jesus' words as he said, "Give and it will be given, pressed down, shaken together, overflowing, poured into your lap." So with that, and I'm going to change the word a little, with the intention, with the love, with the passion that you give, it will be given to you. And so it is. And so now this is such a fun part that I love. And we'll stop the video because we're gonna sing in a circle if you would.